Hi everyone, I'm Richard Fredrickson, and it's too bad you didn't join us a little earlier because we had a great time. But we're going to share something very special with you right now. I have Mr. Terry Darcy with us today. It's only taken me 2 years, 3 months, and 2 weeks, and 4 days to be able to get this man in front of the camera to talk a bit about himself, his business, and his family. Do you know that did you know that the Darcy tradition began when? What year do you think? I'll give you 3 guesses.
1850.
Right on the dime. You must know the Darcy history. Ireland to Joliet in 1850.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. A lot of family history, and that's for another show, but we'll just touch on it just ever so briefly. Terry, who was he's described sometimes as a character, but yet he was an attorney, and I think he had political office in Joliet as well.
Yeah, it was my great-grandfather, John Darcy.
John Darcy.
Yeah.
Senior, John Darcy.
Senior, yep.
And was he the owner of the Crystal Building?
He was.
He
Crystal
was.
Tree.
Okay. Not the Crystal Building that you see today, because I think the Crystal Building had a fire, did it not?
It did, but he rebuilt it.
Yeah, okay, so that is not the original, but it
No,
was
that's
still
the second version of it.
Yeah, because it was still...
He didn't have any insurance on it. He walked across the street to the First National Bank, and they wouldn't make him a loan. So he went to another bank, got the money, and moved all his accounts. Hard-headed Irish.
Oh, boy. Well, a lot of great stories, and I had the privilege and the honor a few years back to do a Darcy documentary with John and Jeanette, and great stories and a wonderful time. And they continue the family tradition of giving to the community. And of course, your mom is still with us and still continuing. I'm Facebook friends with your mother, and every day we're looking on each other. Now, it happens to be that you are not originally from Joliet.
No.
But instead, you're out there in a little tiny town called Plainfield, Illinois.
Yes.
And did you go to school in Plainfield? Mm-hmm. Probably, right?
I did.
Yeah. So before child labor laws were enacted, your dad, your family said, you know what? You need to do something during the summertime. So what did they have planned for you in the summertime in Plainfield?
Well, let's see. You'd either bale hay, hoe beans. When we were really young, my dad had a school bus. We'd have to keep the bus washed for field trips and what have you. And some of my sister would wait tables or bus boys or cut grass. I had when I was 14, I had about 22 lawns. I was a lawn guy. So we always had something to do. If you wanted something, you had to work for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was whether you're a country boy or a city boy. Interesting, 2 interesting sidebars on the early life of you and your family. Kind of a foreshadowing of maybe perhaps what you were going to open up to an opportunity years later. But talking with your dad years ago, I found out that he had a little visit as a car dealer in Plainfield.
Yep.
It's now a Ford dealership, but it's no longer in the corner. It's moved to down on Route 30. The Rod Baker Ford was originally owned by John Darcy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then in banking and all kinds of farm stuff going on. And speaking of farm stuff, picture this, would you, with this distinguished-looking gentleman right now with a let's see, a little cowboy hat on, maybe some cowboy boots, probably Roy Rogers boots or something like that, because you love to be around horses.
Yeah. When I grew up in Plainfield, it was 1,400 people. When I got out of high school in 1974, the population was 1,400. So it wasn't too far to get to the edge of town, and there was a guy named Dr. Glenn Sologic that had ponies and horses. D Bory had horses right on the edge of town in a couple different places. So we'd clean stalls and we'd feed them, and we'd bale hay in the summer, bale straw, and work with the horses. My brother showed him. He was older than I was, so he'd be in Western Pleasure and English, and he did a lot of shows with D for sure.
Yeah. What about Well, since you mentioned your brother, let's mention all your siblings. Get them in there, otherwise they're going to be writing you emails.
Yeah, so it starts with my sister Margie, she's 29, then my brother John's 28, and my brother Kev, myself, my brother Pat. Let's see, my sister Candy, my brother Mike, and then my youngest brother Tom. So they had 10 of us, they had 7 of us in the first 10 years. And then my brother Tom came in later as my mom thought she had the flu bug. And he's 10 years younger than I am, so there's 8 of us.
Okay. So, baling hay and cleaning stalls and doing all the stuff that country boys do.
Cutting grass, catching chickens.
All that. The catching chickens, you never told me about that.
That was the worst job I ever had.
Chickens are pretty stinky business.
Well, we were out at the chicken farm, those big metal buildings along Keaton Farm Road.
Yeah, yeah.
And they had just cages of them, and you'd have to be on this like platform. You'd reach in and you'd throw them the cage behind you, and after they were just about done laying eggs, they'd turn into Campbell's soup. So I've never had Campbell's chicken soup ever again.
I may not have Campbell's soup ever again either. So with the job market, what kind of jobs did you have before you entered the wonderful world of automobiles? Any other jobs?
Yeah, I mean, when I got out of high school, I went into the trades. I became a journeyman iron worker, local 444 here out of Rockdale, and I did that for probably almost 6 years. And I ventured in one winter in a layoff to Ted Benson Dodge. I was looking at a car, and Ted Benson happened to see me on the showroom floor. And he was a customer of my dad's at the bank, so Ted started talking to me about selling cars. And he talked me into trying it in January. You're trained for a month, and then the auto show hits in February, and that's when the market kicks off. So they would try and hire 5 or 6 or 7 people to keep 1 or 2, and that's how I got to start in the car business.
Yeah. You touched on something that is no longer a tradition, but February, and also in the fall, February is when they really started selling cars, but in the fall the car dealers really put on Broadway. The lights were up, the banners were up, the windows were all decorated because the new cars were coming out.
Yeah, Motorama.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, that was always the central industry of the United States was cars. I mean, it still is a huge dollar volume in the country. But it was such a neat thing, you know. I mean, and everybody could pick out what that was and what car, what year, and they all kind of blend together now. But in the old days, cars were king.
Yeah, I want to congratulate you of reaching the age you've reached, because if you were with Ted Benson for any length of time, you got through some experiences. All good, all good.
Oh yeah.
What was it like? I mean, you've never sold a car before. It's February of 1985 or 86, somewhere in there.
No, it was more like 79.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
79, 80, and so the funny thing was there was 5 of us that started together, and Don Peterson was the general manager.
Yeah.
So I was trying. You know, I had my suit didn't fit right, and so the second week I was in there. We were in Don's office, and we were all standing around, the 5 of us in a circle, and the service manager walks in, and he looks at Don, asks him a question, and Don says, "What do you think of my new recruits, Richie?" And he looks at me, and he points at me, and he goes, "That guy's not even breathing. He won't be here in a week." Well, being all Irish, I took his challenge.
I hope someone in that family is watching this today. By the way, we want to welcome our YouTube viewers as well today, not only Channel 6, but YouTube as well. Before we get to your dealerships, you, as your mom and dad and grandfathers and all the Darcys, have had business experience and expertise, but above and beyond that, they've had a tradition of giving back to the community in many different ways, and we could do the whole show on just that category of what the Darcys have done in Joliet and Plainfield and throughout Will County. And there's just not enough time to cover all that. But everybody, you have touched organizations, churches, places like Forest Park, the Spanish Center. That was vans, I think, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Providing them with vans. And there was and I know we don't throw amounts of money around, but in my research, I found out that you, somewhere in these decades, you've contributed somewhere north of $40,000 to various cancer organizations. Mm-hmm. So that's something special for you as well. And you have well, I know one of the reasons why you have a dedication to veterans, because I think one of your sons served in...
Yeah. He served in the Army National Guard, and he did 400 days in Afghanistan in combat in '09.
And if you haven't driven down Essington Road lately, shame on you, you should. Because by proclamation, just a couple of weeks ago, well, maybe a couple months ago, it has become Terry Darcy Way. Is that how it is?
Yeah.
Terry Darcy Way. And we may have a little bit that we could put in there at that spot right now. Yeah, you can do something with that, Mr. Schuster. I'm sure you can. Just a little blip. I want to thank you for that, by the way. Oh, and congratulations. I just found this out. Did you know this? This man just received an honorary degree from St. Francis.
Yeah.
From the University of St. Francis.
Yes.
Not from St. Francis,
Yes.
but university. When was that? This year, wasn't it?
Yeah. Larry Walsh and I got him on the same day. Larry got him in the morning commencement, I got it in the afternoon commencement.
That's great.
It's hard to follow Larry. He was
yeah.
such a heartfelt guy.
Wow.
Just a great man.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was quite an experience.
And you had the whole family there, and it was neat. Do you have somebody who in the family working also with you in the dealership?
My son Nick and my son Harry work with me, yeah.
Okay. In Morris or Joliet?
Both of them at the GMC store.
Oh, okay. Let's see, where do we go from here? I'm going to do a few things before we get into the dealership. A lot of fond memories. So, share a couple of memories you have along the lines of whether it's with selling cars or meeting people or people you've met along the way that you'd like to recognize or think about.
Well, you know, my mom and dad have had such a great circle of friends during their lives, you know, the Bitts Browns and the Jim Fays, and so we were able to meet a lot of really neat people like that. And then when I came back and got in the business in '91 here as the Oldsmobile dealer in Joliet, Andy Barber, Jim Oberworthman, all those guys drove Oldsmobiles. They didn't want to look too ritzy in Joliet, so I had the good fortune to sit and talk to them. They'd get an oil change and they'd spend a half hour, 45 minutes talking to me. And Frank Turk Sr. I mean, there's a lot of wisdom in those guys, and I really got a lot of good schooling from some of the great guys that have preceded us in this community.
Yeah. Joliet wouldn't be Joliet today without Frank Turk Jr. Senior, I mean, because he bailed the entire city out at the time, and with a few of his friends. Mm-hmm. That's a little bit of Joliet history there.
A little piece of history on Frank Sr. He was married to my grandfather's twin sister. A lot of people don't know that.
Well, sort of an icon in radio, Don Lattis, when I first came to Joliet in, I think it was 1978, he said, don't talk about somebody in Joliet because they're all related. Yeah. And at that time, they really were almost all related. Whether in-laws or outlaws, they were all related. Could you believe that you've been selling cars since 1979? If that's the date you gave me, 1979?
Yeah, I got out for 4 or 5 years and I went in the video business and didn't do too well and got back in the car business. Okay. So yeah, I've had over 35 years of automotive experience.
Wow. Boy, they go by fast, don't
It's
they?
a people business, not the car business. That's the commodity. The real business is people.
Yeah, and the Darcys and certainly you have that relationship skill, because it's, you know, I've talked to some women, when you first got involved with providing the Athena Award, mm-hmm. Hopefully you know what the Athena Award is. There are some, not all, because today women are very, you know, they know what they want to buy and they know the cars as well. But back then, these two told me, we go into Darcy, we say, we want a green one, or we want a powder blue one. Mm-hmm. And we buy whatever he has because of what he's done for the women of Joliet, the business women of Joliet. So that's one of the many ways you built relationships here in Joliet and Will County. Okay, here we go. We'll open up the door.
All right.
So when did you buy this first dealership, and what was it?
It was Jim Graham Oldsmobile. It was September 6, 1991. And I had a partner named Tom Dempsey. He's still in the auto business. He's got one in Plano.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be approved by a manufacturer to own a franchise. And he had been a dealer in Dwight for a while, so I didn't have quite the experience yet. I'd never been running a whole store. So he and I were partners for about a year and a half. So we got together in September of 91, and then we bought Volkswagen from Tyson in June of 92. And in June of 93, we bought the GMC franchise from Rendell's. So we had all that packed into a 20,000 square foot store on 3 acres at Stryker and Jefferson.
Yeah.
And I think that was about the time Tom was buying a second store. So I bought him out of that one, and he opened up a second store in Plano, which at the time he had Dwight and Plano going on. So then I had that one spot with the Oldsmobile, Volkswagen, and GMC franchises all in one spot.
I would think in those days, the bottom of that row of cars was probably Volkswagen.
It was, because the year we bought it, they quit making most of their models because they were having such quality problems. So the dealer, Tyson had sold 100 the year before, and we sold probably 18 or 20 in the year because they just quit making cars
Right.
till they could get the quality right. And then I knew GMC had a lot of opportunity because I had worked at a Chevy store for 5 years in Naperville, and I knew the truck market was getting really hot, and the sport utility and the Blazers and Suburbans. And so when we had the good opportunity to get a hold of the light duty franchise from the Rendell family, I saw the opportunity there, and we've just really grown well with that.
Yeah. It's interesting when you say back then the truck industry was getting hot. It can't be any hotter than it is, even with this 2020 challenges.
Oh yeah.
But it's been so hot for the last, I don't know, a couple of years, and it looks like the future of trucks is really going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, they went 50-50 about 4 years ago, cars and trucks, and then, what we call a truck is a sport utility, and so that margin is now starting to go the other way to where trucks are probably, and I call trucks, sport utilities,
Yeah, sure.
65% of the market.
So why in the world, you got this thing going in Joliet, and we'll talk about expansion in a minute, but all of a sudden, you think about country again, and you want to go out to Morris, Illinois, and buy a dealership out there, way out of Morris, across the county line and all?
22 miles. Door to door.
On I-80 or 52, at 47, back down there. Well, that was a well-known dealership as well for years in Morris, and a great location. That is a Buick, GMC also?
Buick, Chevy, and Cadillac.
Oh, that's right. That's a Cadillac.
So I didn't have a Chevy franchise nor a Cadillac franchise. And a lot of our guests, might want a variation on vehicles, so it gives us something else to offer. That store had been owned by that family for over 40 years.
Yeah.
And there's only so many franchises available, so when they come available, you hope to be able to acquire them.
And can you educate me a little bit here now? I believe, talking way back to a guy by the name of Bert Adams, who had a Pontiac dealership on Jefferson, he told me back then, he said, I'm the last of the dealers are going to have one car. We've got to have, for the most part, most new dealerships now are going to have 2 or 3 different models out there or cars out there, because they're not going to let you have a one model store anymore, although there are some. They've been around for a long time.
Yeah.
But that's a different philosophy of the industry today.
Yeah, back in the early 2000s, the manufacturers started to condense things. They had too many people trying to serve too many dealers. So like Buick, GMC, and Pontiac were supposed to all be blended under the same roof. So I had GMC since 93, and then I was able to get the Buick franchise from the Vidmar family in 2000. And so I had the right and the left bower in the old game of euchre, and I knew that someday Bert was going to sell it sooner or later.
Sure.
And the manufacturer partnered up and made some offers that allowed he and I to merge the franchise into my building. And so that's kind of how that went.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a little bit of a mutt dog. I got a little this, a little that in me, but it's been a fun run.
And it continues, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
In that mode, in that transition about continuing, as we speak right now, you're expanding and relocating and expanding.
Yeah, we're going to relocate the Hyundai franchise off Jefferson Street. It's a great location, but we've outgrown it. Like when I was on Stryker and Jefferson with the 3 franchises at the time, that was just, I couldn't expand at all. So I talked to Lou Strojan. I was going to buy 5 acres out here. It was the only place I could get 5 acres or more in a B3 zoning that I could build a car dealership, and I did not want to leave Joliet. Some dealers went to Shorewood. I really, because of our heritage in Joliet, I didn't want to leave. So Lou talked me into buying 18 acres. He was kind of a
good salesman.
Yeah, and he was right. He kept saying, well, that's not going to be enough. That's not going to be enough. As much of his character as he was. So we ended up with 18 acres out there, and we got in that store in 05, and I was going to put Hyundai in right away, but it kind of took me a while to get ramped back up, and then the transition of 09 hit, and so now we're ready. And even with the pandemic, I paused it for 4 or 5 months. We were starting to plan pretty strong, and the future's a great place, so I'm not worried about pandemics and all the other stuff.
Well, as long as you brought it up, you brought the elephant in the room up. How has that COVID-19 impacted the business, your business and the industry? Well,
for a General Motors dealer, it was tough because in the beginning of the year they had a strike for almost 2 months, so we didn't get much inventory. And then COVID slowed them down for a couple months. So we missed about 35% of the production this year. So we've been really running short on inventory. And it's going to be it's a down but not out year. So, you take the good ones with the bad ones.
Sure.
I'm just fortunate to have what I have.
I was talking with Doug Pryor from the CED earlier today on WJOL, and he was talking about, the downturn in the economy this year. I said, Doug, there's nothing like what happened back in whenever that was, when we just had one industry, Caterpillar, and we had interest rates at 23, 24%.
Paul Volcker, 1981.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. So I said, we went through that, and we've come a long way. And actually, 2019 was a great year for Joliet and Will County in so many different ways. So anything else in the future that you want to just tell me and we won't tell anybody else?
Well, no, what we're gearing up is this, I always look out 1, 2, 5, 10, 20 years. So 20 years from now, there's going to be a lot of electrification, for sure.
Sure.
And it'll be the second car in the household. Maybe they'll get better battery usage where they can charge them faster. But right now, we just got the Hummer franchise, which is
that's right.
addendum to our Buick GMC franchise. And you had to apply for it, and you had to get accepted for it. And we'll probably spend a couple $100,000 buying all the equipment to service a fully electric vehicle. We need a special forklift, special lifts, special space in the garage, charging stations outside, charging stations inside. So we're looking for this future that's going to gear us towards more electrification. I think it's pretty far out, 10 years, 12 years, 15 years. I mean, the problem is you can't fill it up like you do a gasoline car, so you don't want to be the 9th guy behind somebody that takes 40 minutes to get all their charge back.
Yeah, it'll be obviously coming up in the future. One of the things that of interest to me is to business people I've talked to through the years. What do you contribute to your success?
Really good people around me. I have the most fantastic, caring, giving people that make me look good. And we keep our compass on true north, live by the golden rule, and, be farmers, not hunters. Just do the right thing. I always tell our new starts, I said, we sell trust. Don't ever breach it, ever.
Yeah, and that's been a tradition since 1979. do a little public service announcement here. But if you're watching this in July, forget about this, okay? But if you're watching it in December, hopefully, or early January, whenever we get this thing on the air, probably December, okay? You have calendars that are still available for folks. If they just stop in, they get a free calendar, right? It's one of those real big jobbers.
Yeah, I don't know if we have any left.
Yeah, you do. I checked.
Do we? All right, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, those things go
Yeah.
quick, and
Yeah.
everybody loves them.
Yeah. If you don't, it's your service manager who told me. Actually,
All
he went
right.
on the air today on WGOL.
Oh, good. So he's got
and
some
said
left.
there are calendars available out there,
Good.
but like Terry said, there's not many, but there's nothing like those calendars. The Darcy family and Terry Darcy continue with the traditions, and your wife Susan, I think about her when we're going to do this interview. She was like my neighbor, Jack Patterson, who was a good friend, worked at 7-Up, and that whole family. Again, I go back to watch out what you say about people in Joliet, because most of them are somehow, some way related, and those that are not related are friends. So be careful. And so, Susan, the Patterson family have been, I don't know, friends for a long time. Then they got the travel business and all of that going on. And but family is important to you, and I need to ask you about your family. You mentioned your son, the 2 sons, but tell me the rest of the story.
So I've got 4 boys. Sue and I have been married 15 years, so we've got a blended family. But my 4 boys, the oldest is a Joliet police officer, Chris. Nick is the general manager of the Buick GMC store. Harry is the used car manager down there. And my son Jack goes to Lewis. He's in the commercial aviation program.
Ah.
And then Sue's got a son and daughter. Her son works for Ernst & Young in Chicago, and her daughter's in her last year of nursing school at USF. So Jack and Caroline are Sue's kids.
Who was the one, Lewis, what's his name?
My son Jack.
Jack.
Yeah.
You see, you know why he's doing that, don't you? So that Jack can become the commercial pilot for those trips that you want to make. You want to catch up with Jay Bergman.
Well, it's funny because my son Nick was working on a pilot's license, so we went out and bought a $15,000 1947 Cessna 142. It went about 73 miles an hour, and I'd talked to other car dealers with their private jets and stuff. I
Right.
said, I'll pick up my corporate. I said, we'll have to make 4 or 5 stops to get to Indiana, and we'll be there in about 5 hours.
There's a bunch of things right behind Terry and to my right, which we're going to get a close-up of right now. But there's more at probably both stores. And that is, we mentioned a lot of the community outreach that you've done over the years. And we just the events, I didn't even mention that. Sponsorship of so many of the events we've had in Joliet. And now in 2021, they're going to move the fireworks thing, I guess, to Joliet Junior College campus because of the new softball fields are not acclimated to rockets coming down on them because of the new turf. But we're going to take a look at some of the awards and recognitions here. And if you had a choice, 1 or 2, they really mean and are very special to you, what would they be?
That's really a hard choice. I mean, I've been really involved in the Park District for many years because that's recreation for the community, and I really felt like we've grown together. I've started the real Taste of Joliet when we put a little fire in it and it grew into a great festival for the community. But there's so many great organizations in our community. It'd be hard to pick one, and I call them all investments. There's no donations. I mean, I do my due diligence on what's that money going to do when it gets into that organization. Yeah. And there's just so many great organizations in the community, and hospitals and social service centers and just people in general that just take care of each other.
Yeah. Well, I think that's, when people from outside look at Joliet today with more positive eye. I don't want to say positivity. It's a bad word today. a more positive outlook when you meet people from Chicago or whether it's Elgin or wherever. They look at Joliet differently than they did 30 years ago. And a lot of the old timers say, oh, Joliet was great back in the day. But Joliet is actually perceived to be much better today. It's a very unique county. And the developments, the future, as your stores, Will County is set to just take off. It's unique of all the counties in Illinois. It's listed as one of the top 100 counties in the nation. And you're all a part of that. Terry, Darcy, we need more time. We're running out of time, but I don't know if you know this. We'll put it on the screen in case you don't know. But folks, if you want to contact Darcy, you want to see some of their products, some of their, the service department is fantastic. Sales, I know the training goes on almost all the time over there. Confession is good for the soul. So here goes, a little confession for you. If I find the slightest squeak or the rubber on the windshield is getting just a little bit, I take it into the store. You know why? Yeah, I get it fixed, but I get a free car wash.
Yeah.
I get a free car wash. You must have $1 million car wash over there because it's fantastic.
Yeah.
$2 million.
It's a commercial car wash. And I knew that down the road I was going to have that second store there. So this car wash will do 80 cars an hour.
Wow.
And so, we might service 200 or 300 cars in a day.
Sure.
So, and I had one before that would do 12 in an hour. So what happened to me was I'd get 4 or 5 backed up or 6 backed up, and that 45-minute oil change just got an extra half hour because you're number 6 in line.
Right.
So I knew that my vision 5 years ago was that there's going to be a campus out here with a lot more service opportunity.
It was a great car wash, and
Starbucks coffee. We have Starbucks.
that's right too. I was going to mention that. You got the coffee, you got the beverages in a great waiting room, or 2 actually. I like to sit up by the cars, but a lot of people will sit in the and they've got the every other one, so you've got that distancing thing going on, and the masks also. And by the way, we're far enough away from here so that we decided not to wear a mask, but we certainly you will do that when you're in the store. There's a lot of other things we could cover, Terry. I just don't have the time to do it. I want to thank you. I know you're one of the busiest guys around, and there's so much more to talk about, and maybe we'll do it again when you open up the Hyundai.
Let's do that. We'll do it down there.
Yeah.
Love to do it.
We'll do it on site. And I know what I was going to ask you. We need to do this at the very end. How to contact Darcy. Is it Darcy Motors? Is it Darcy Buick? Which one are we going to use?
Well, 439-5500 is the main number for the GMC store.
Okay.
And that's probably where I spend the most time other than this office.
Okay. But folks, if you're on YouTube or something in Morris, can you go to Darcy Motors? Does that get you everybody or not?
Yeah, that gets you all 3 rooftops.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Let's hit the phone number and also darcymotors.com.
Yes.
Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for the interview. I'm Richard Fredericks, and this has been Profile here on Channel 6. Take care.